I like salad. Do you like salad?
Hi, I'm Ho Shun Ho. I'm living in Vancouver, BC, Canada, unceded territory of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I'm an immigrant to Canada from China.
Hey everyone, I'm Andrea coming to you from Victoria, but more importantly known as unceded Excwepsum territory of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations, and I am an immigrant from the United States of America. And you're listening to
Canadian Salad.
Canadian Salad. Hi, welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
How's your week?
Oh, Hoshin, I am not ready for 2025. I'm also ready for 2025. You know, it's one of those like paradoxical feelings where you're like, I'm ready to move forward, but I'm also really terrified about what moving forward will bring.
Oh my God, Project 2025.
Oh my gosh. No. How about you? How are you? Hopefully better than me.
I have some vacations coming up in 2025. Those are the ones that I'm looking forward to.
Oh.
But other than that, not so much.
No, not so much. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just another year, getting older.
Poor young man. Aw.
But also elections also coming for Canada.
Yes, yeah. More provincial elections and then federal elections will be next year as well.
Oh, so that's also a bit scary.
But
I also can't wait to kick the Liberal out. But I feel like once Liberals out, it's got to be conservative because
I know.
Historically, it's either conservative or Liberal.
I know, which is so lame. It's like we're better than this. Like we have the opportunity to do better, but we just kind of we're lazy. I don't know.
I know we have NDP. That's better option than Liberal and definitely better than conservative.
Yeah.
Anyway,
like we should do an NDP Green partnership.
That would be perfect.
Right? Let's just do both of them, and then everyone else can, I don't know, just eat cheese or chicken. Chicken. We're gonna talk about chicken today, Hoshin.
Bok, yes, chicken. Bok chicken, yes.
Bok chicken. Is that a real food item in Chinese cuisine? Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, what kind of chicken we're talking about?
Well, we're going to talk about halal chicken and a big decision that was made this year, I guess, in media actually, about KFC, which
KFC Korean fried chicken?
Korean fried chicken? No, it's Kentucky, but it should be Korean fried chicken because they do it better. Yeah, KFC earlier this year in May actually announced its compliance with offering halal chicken at a variety of its restaurants across Ontario.
Ooh,
and we're going to kind of unpack that because there's more to this story that's developed even recently. But like on the surface, it looks like KFC is being really inclusive. It's like, hey, that's good. I'm totally pro having more options on the menu for other people who need that. But it does beg some questions. And I think before we get into it, I want to ask you a question. Do you think inclusion excludes, Hoshin?
Yeah,
it's
I think
pretty philosophical.
True inclusion does not exclude. Let's just say that. That's how I see it, at least. But I think sometimes inclusion actions from certain acts, for example, for rice cake, like we do. Like when we sell tickets, we will have like POC price. Some white people had come up to us saying that is discrimination. They felt that of course they feel excluded, discriminated, that why only POC gets a cheaper price and the white people have to pay full price. So for us, it's being inclusive because we know the oppressed, POCs being oppressed had less opportunities in the work field in general, in terms of inequality. So we're trying to compensate. We're trying to be in the true spirit of equity.
Right, exactly.
Give them a discounted price. And we are Rice Cake. We are at heart a POC event company. Of course, our talk is always also mainly into POCs as well. So our intent and even our action in many ways is with true inclusion at heart.
Right.
But for some people does not understand the systematic racism and oppression, it excluded them.
Yeah. When the reality is like all the other systems are for you. And so this one area, this one event, this one time in time and space that isn't, at your like equal opportunity or even just access for you. And you think that's because you had one experience where you don't have that opportunity does not mean that's exclusion.
Exclusionary. Yeah, I agree. Especially, like I said, like we decided to do discounted price because you have if we think about inclusion, you also think about if everyone is the same price, we also excluded the people that does not have the funds for it. And historically speaking and systematic speaking, usually it was the POC who has less money.
Yeah, and had been excluded for
centuries.
Decades and decades. Yeah, centuries. Exactly.
So if these white people come to us saying that they are being discriminated, if you really think about true inclusion, then this kind of discounted rate should definitely be considered to this group of people that has been systematically, historically discriminated and oppressed.
Right. You would see this inclusive process actually being really inclusive, and you would be happy because there's an opportunity for someone who hasn't had that opportunities historically.
Exactly. Historically, also they have less space for them to celebrate, to just be in a space that's fully just POCs, and so they don't have to worry about any other white people. Kind of being a white people space, And in some sense also is in the true spirit of inclusive.
It is. Yeah. And it's, yeah. I think inclusion, like you said, I think true and genuine inclusion does not exclude. I think people can feel excluded. Does that mean that they were excluded? I think inclusion, back to what we were talking about, I do think that true inclusion, like for those white people in that room or at that event, would be genuinely happy that there were opportunities. And that's what inclusion is. It's like saying, okay, here's some more opportunities that are equal and accessible for people who systemically and historically have not had those opportunities. So we're going to unpack what happened and go into what there were some groups from this KFC decision that actually felt excluded. And we're going to go into why. So it was May 8th. KFC, of course, announced introduction to more inclusive options for customers by offering halal chicken. And this is an article out of, what is it? An article out of Now magazine. We'll include the link, but always include the link in our show notes. But, quote, they said, American fast food chain collaborated with KFC Canada Muslim team to include halal menu and the removal of pork in some chain restaurants as of May 15th across all KFC Canada stores in Ontario, except for Thunder Bay and Ottawa, end quote. Okay. And halal meat, for people who don't know, halal, this is out of the Halal Monitoring Committee in the UK. But halal is an Arabic term which means permissible or lawful in Islam. And it's a reference to food. And it's a dietary standard as prescribed to Islamic law. So halal food, basically what happens when you do halal meat, that it's slaughtered by hand and not machine. It's usually done by a Muslim man with recited prayers, and certain arteries of the animal are severed in a certain order in order to cause minimal suffering to the animal in its death. It's ingrained in religious practice and observance. So food that is halal is food that Muslims will consume. So as part of the initiative, staff were trained. They partnered with halal product suppliers that were product suppliers in Canada. And of course, there were right-wing white Canadians saying that, well, fine, we're going to go to other restaurants like Mary Brown's Chicken, only to find out that actually a lot of other restaurants had been serving halal for quite some time. Yeah, so suck it. But what was interesting is actually in July, there were representatives from the Sikh and the Hindu communities who petitioned KFC saying that halal meat was not permissible to their faith and religious practice because any meat that is prepared with other religious practices is not permissible for them to consume. They asked the restaurants to have more diverse options. And this particular article actually noted, this was out of Ontario News Magazine. They said that one of the reasons why KFC had chosen to do halal was that there are twice as many people within the Muslim community across Ontario than there are Sikh and Hindu. And so, again, this was because KFC wanted to make money. So they petitioned KFC and some other chains just saying you need to be more diverse, but nothing really came of it. So nothing really happened until about 1 month ago. So 1 month ago, Marketplace CBC went undercover to restaurant chains to see if they were really complying with these halal standards that they said they were going to observe. So they went into 10 different restaurants that claimed halal standards: KFC, Popeyes, Osmow's, Boston Pizza, and Mary Brown's. The team included a Muslim employee who follows a halal diet, and that person asked a number of questions which Muslim consumers and experts in certification of halal would need to know before feeling comfortable eating those food pieces. Turns out quite a few of those restaurants had their certification in halal practice that had expired, but they hadn't renewed it. There were quite a few restaurants that didn't know how to answer those halal questions, right? Like staff didn't know what these questions meant. They could not trace or track the fact that some of these meats were coming from non-halal certified places. And so it really goes to show that as much as on the surface, KFC and other restaurants are trying to be inclusive, they weren't. Because if you are really trying to be inclusive, to our point earlier, you would have like full inclusion, right? And I think I'd like to go into a little bit of what inclusion is. Do you have any thoughts, though, before we jump into that section on what happened with KFC and just any reflections on that whole
what
thing?
just happened?
Yeah.
Well, in reflection of what the example I gave about rice cake, about sometimes we do specific programs or treatment are in place to a specific group of people because sometimes because they are historically has been oppressed. So now we need to build certain things to bring them up.
Yeah.
Like, for example, even in Canada, there's a lot of specific programs that cater to Indigenous people, right? Because we have been mistreating them for centuries, and then now we need to put special attention to them. So that is in the name of equity. But again, that's the intention part of it. For KFC, I don't necessarily understand the intention part of it.
Yeah.
Of why they suddenly want to go halal, whether they have any demand by the population or demand by upper management that this is needed to address this need, that to help the less fortunate and less equal group of people, which I doubt, to be honest. But I assume we're going to go into it later. But if they have really the true intention to just really address this kind of the people that of their needs, then yes. But if they're not, then I think this is not true inclusion. This is just a stunt in many ways.
Yeah. Yeah. For profit. I think I read in one article, KFC had announced on Twitter to make sure that all Canadians can eat our chicken. We are going to create halal chicken. I think it was for profit. I think there was a large demographic of people in certain populations, especially Ontario, where they said, oh, well, we could increase sales if we have this branding, if we follow this thing, right? It's kind of like a lot of organizations, a lot of big box stores, like Target did this in the States, where they said, oh, we're inclusive and Pride, and they would sell Pride colors and merch. But when it comes to actually standing up for the queer community, when it came to hate crimes and things like that, there's an echo chamber. They were silent. They wouldn't do anything. They wouldn't pull certain products that were being discriminatory towards queer communities. So it is when you leverage diversity and inclusion for profit.
Yeah.
Which this happens a lot with organizations.
Yeah.
Where, on the marketing level, how can we make our products more inclusive so we make more money? But you look up the chain of command at the boardroom level and the executive level, and all of them are white, straight men making all these decisions. So it isn't that true inclusion. It's inclusion to profit, which will create exclusion.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day, if that's your intention, is gonna create exclusion rather than
Totally.
inclusion.
Totally. Yeah. And so I think to break it down just really simply, because I know inclusion is one of those words that we hear in EDI. It's used a lot, and I don't know that people really can sit with it. And I would love to hear, Hoshin, also from if you have a definition too that you understand it to be, I also want to hear that, because these are taken from some agencies like education agencies. So I think it's really important to have that lived experience as well, and not just like the textbook. But Inclusion BC states that, quote, inclusion removes systemic barriers that persist in legacy systems that were designed with a narrower understanding of who belonged in, quote, normal society. It reconfigures physical and social structures to welcome diversity. It doesn't equal integration because it's about systemic transformation, end quote. And then Inclusion Ontario, which is it's a nonprofit diversity, equity, and inclusion branch that helps schools create better inclusive classrooms. They say inclusion is, quote, consists of the efforts and practices to ensure groups or individuals with different backgrounds are culturally and socially accepted and treated equally, end quote. I really loved the Inclusion BC because it did talk about that systemic barrier and legacy systems that have created exclusion for a lot of people, especially for the global majority, especially for people of color, especially for non-white European descendants. Yeah. Did either of those like resonate with you, or is there a definition that you really resonate with regarding inclusion?
I think inclusion itself is like a process or practice, a guiding principle.
Yeah.
That for me, it has to be first and foremost, because I feel like we can see inclusion as like an end goal. It's always something that in the works. Because I feel like inclusion is not something you ever get achieved, because society changes, people changes. And then there's always going to be differences is always going to create between us, because individuality is something that it flows even us as a person. Who I am 10 years ago, who I am now is very different. Right. And then our differences in many ways creates these barriers for people, because a different is scary in many ways human nature, right? So I think that's something that I always remind myself, that inclusion is a process.
Yeah.
It's not a goal, like end goal. Because if we see it as like an end goal, then at some point we got it, we're there.
Right. Right. You're absolutely right.
And I feel like we can think that we ever gonna be there. We always have to just put in the work of it.
Yeah.
That's how I see it, at least.
Yeah. And I like that because in my mind, it looks like a rainbow or even like a banner. It's this, or umbrella, where everything that it applies not just to this one area, but like all aspects, whether it's systemic, whether it's your own personal decisions, whether it's how you teach your children, whether it's who you talk to and how you talk to people who are different than you in the workplace. Like, it encompasses everything. It's not just in the workplace, I will make sure to be inclusive, but at home and with the literature that I read and the shows that I watch and the conversations and the friends that I have, I'm not going to be inclusive there. But it's an embodiment. It's a process that's embodied. And it's something that I totally agree with you that it's consistently trying to reconfigure society and how it changes to make sure that everyone is at the table and everyone is gaining access and opportunity. I heard someone say, I think it was at the Immigration Summit, they said, immigrants don't need help. Like, we're capable people. We are smart, intelligent, resilient adults who know what we want and know how to get it. All we're asking is for equal opportunity. All we're asking is to be welcome to the table. Help has this kind of narrative like, oh, we're so poor and we just need someone to just lift us up out of the muck and mire, which when the reality is we need to make sure there's no muck and mire that you have to be lifted out of, because we put that muck and mire there, right? And so I do feel like that inclusion piece is something that it is so needed right now. And it's so needed in all of us, like you said, because our societies are evolving and changing. And with all of these differences and all of this globalization, this is an ongoing thing. It is not the end. Like, check. I got my inclusion trophy.
Yeah, there's what I'm saying. I
Okay.
feel like there's a lot of companies doing that too. I think it's
Yeah.
important doing that. A lot
Yeah.
of companies think, oh, we reach inclusion because we have like representation at every level. Maybe it's a gender representation or ethnicity
Right.
representation. They do it like an angle kind of deal.
Yeah.
Or we have a EDI department. We have inclusion down.
Check.
Yeah, check. So I think
Profesh.
exactly. So or even people like some friends I have. So, oh, I have friends of every kind. Or I'm
Right.
dating a black man or a trans person. So I'm
Right. Right. Right.
like a very inclusive person. You can see that that's not how inclusion works. It's not
Right.
because you have something, a token or whatever, and then you check the box
Right.
and then you there. So it's
Right.
important we remind
Yeah.
ourselves that is never an end goal. It's always a work in process.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we've answered our own question because the third question that I have on our outline, yes, people, we do use outlines. We're not just like throwing stuff. We are very organized. You should see our
Very much
notes.
so.
But our third question was, can inclusion exclude? And I think I will admit at first I thought, yeah, I think it can. Because just from reading that article, the Hindu and Sikh community, they did
Yeah.
express feelings of exclusion. And in some ways, they were excluded from that decision-making process to make diverse food options for everyone, right?
Yeah.
The fact that they felt that way, I would never disagree with them. I would also, after researching though, a lot of people are saying if you don't practice inclusion, if you think, oh, we're going to be inclusive, but we don't have diversity in that inclusion, then heck yes, we will exclude. In the sense of, yeah, if we're not having that diverse voices representation from the top down, making those decisions, then yeah, we're going to miss it.
Yeah, I think if in the KFC example, like if you truly want to be inclusive, I think yes, you should have halal meat in your menu, but also maybe keep the non-halal options for other people. Because it won't be that difficult for you have been doing non-halal meat for so long. So now you wanted to only do halal meat that you have to understand you also exclude this certain kind of people. If you, the true inclusion for me would be you have menu for everyone.
Right.
It's not like that is difficult for you to do. If you just logistically impossible, then okay, then maybe I'll have more sympathy of the decision you made, but that's not the case, isn't it?
Right. Right.
So I think it's just decision, as you said, maybe there's a lack of diversity in their decision-making process. Hence, we have this kind of outcome right here.
Right.
I think if on the board, there's like people from the Sikh community, from the Muslim community, I think that's definitely will be a way better option, way better outcome out there. But I believe that they did not consult people from all the community. Yeah, that's why it happens like that.
Yeah. And this is the other piece. It's like, oh, we've consulted with another association of people. So because we consulted, that informed our decision. Great. But they're not at the decision-making table. Because you look how this story unfolds, a lot of these restaurants failed their halal certification or had expired certifications, or they didn't train staff enough and staff didn't know how to answer questions. They didn't know what even halal meant, or they didn't know if the company they were buying the meat from was halal certified. Like, if it truly was that important, if it really was about including diverse options for consumers, then you would have kept it that way. You would have made sure that was a priority. You would have invested checks and balances, and you would have created audits so that you made sure that it was complying with these standards that you say you want to uphold, because you had a consultation. But that consultation only went so far because you didn't have people who were making those decisions at the top level. At least I don't believe. It's hard to know, but I believe that it could have ended much differently had KFC been if they had that full piece of diversity to create that inclusive offerings.
I agree. And also in speaking, if something that is only, when it's only in your marketing or in your message, that usually some sort of exclusion is involved.
It is.
Because you only serve halal meat. That itself is, why only? What about other people?
Right. Exactly.
So that wording that itself is just,
right.
I don't think that's inclusive enough. Yeah.
Yeah. And these are like $1 million, $1 billion chains. It's not like these are little tiny mom and pop restaurants that are really trying to make the budget for all their food work out, right? Like these are chains that have the money. They have the money to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But did they do it? No, they didn't do it well. And they certainly, again, this is a reflection of what a lot of organizations want to do with EDI, EDIB, equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging. It's like, well, we'll make sure we do it on the marketing level and on the consumer level. But beyond that, And so that's when they get it wrong. And that's where they fail. And that's why people are still upset because y'all say you really care, but then you don't really care because you don't really do the thing that shows that you care. Right?
Anyway, but on the other side, I also understand that some inclusion can seem like exclusive. On the surface. Like, for example, the rice cake example I give.
Yeah.
And I also know there's a one dance studio in Vancouver here. It's a very small dance studio.
Okay.
There's one night in a week that only do POC female.
Okay.
Only accept POC female.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people had a lot of words against that. Wow, like that is like the most discriminatory thing I ever seen. Or like,
oh my gosh.
I know.
My gosh.
I think that itself, again, I think from these people who had bad words against this decision, they only see the seemingly exclusive side of that decision. But for me, all I see is the inclusive side.
Oh my gosh. It's pure and flat out racism. To be so offended that one group of people has one freaking night to do their own thing. And if you're offended by that and you get 6 days out of 7 where you get to feel safe and you get to feel included and celebrated and get to hang out with your friends without worry, and you're complaining about one day, like this isn't even the glass is half empty. This is literally you hate glasses and you hate water and you just want to make everyone else miserable because you feel offended. I don't know. I feel like that's just awful racism.
But this example to the KFC situation is very different. For example, the owner of the dance studio, she is a big, proud POC woman. She also felt that it's needed, even though she faced a lot of backlash in the community. She said, it was not fun, but I insist on it because it's important. And for like that night always gets full, always fully signed up. Yeah, because so many people feel empowered and they realize, they feel that this space is so much needed for them to feel safe in their own skin, also supported by people that had a similar experience outside of this classroom, that they can just, in some way, this kind of just visual representation to dance together, empower them even more so.
Yeah. And it's like people, it's one night. I
know it's one night. You have a whole world out there for you.
Exactly. The whole freaking white world at your fingertips.
Yes. Usually it's a white man had problem with that. I was just like, baby.
Yeah. And this is with the KFC, like there were a bunch of right-wing nationalist kind of people like, I'm going to go somewhere else. And that's just because of racism. But like the Sikh and Hindu community, I can see where that's a very different response than white people being offended. You know what I mean? But you're right. I feel like, and that's the work that we do. And that's why we make more inclusive spaces, people, so that everyone has that space and that
to go to,
and that abandonment and that freedom and that expression and that existence that has been in question for so many people of color and never for white people. Like, why is that so hard? I do not understand why that's so hard. Anyway, yes. So, yes.
Well, thank you, Andrea.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Very educational.
It was. Well, and it sparks a lot of good conversation. I don't think I've sat down with this term in light of this context. And I like that this happened because these are good case studies to be like, what was inclusive? Was it inclusive? You know? So
exactly.
Again, if you're needing some people to come to your office and business at your boardroom and you're not fully diverse yet, we're here for you.
We're here for you.
Hire us. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll be great.
Yes, we will.
Yes. And now we do Canadian salad.
Canadian salad pop quiz. Here we go. Yes, if you're new to this.
Yeah, I went last time, so you go first time this.
Okay.
You go first time. Oh, you go first. Sorry.
Thank you. If you are new to our podcast, welcome. We end every episode with a Canadian style pop quiz where we ask each other a question related to the topic that we talked about. So, Hoshin, my question to you is, how much do Canadians spend on halal food products each year?
Year? Oh my God, year. Ooh. Each person?
Total. What's the total amount that is spent on halal food products?
As a country.
According to the government of Canada. Yeah.
As a country.
As a country. God. Halal food.
Is it in the billions?
Ding, 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 ding.
Yep.
Yes, it is billions of dollars. I'll put the link in. It doesn't say exactly how much, but they do say billions of dollars every year. And that's why KFC jumped in it, I think, because honestly,
it's a lot of
money. Girl, if you want to really make businesses do differently, I mean, you hit them in the pockets. Yeah. You know, like that's happened with like even the bus boycott, you know, with Martin Luther King. Like it was, we'll walk. And you'll see how much you'll miss us. You'll see how much you need integration. And the only reason they integrated, or the bus companies did, is because they were losing money.
Yeah, I saw this like interview, like this actress.
Yes.
A comedian. She's why people only care about equality when it hurts their wallet.
Yep.
If you want something to get done, make sure you hurt their wallet and they will get up and do things for you.
Yeah.
I was like,
absolutely.
You are right.
Yes. Yeah, it's true.
Make sure you hurt their wallet, then they will do things for you.
Yes. Plus, I'm not encouraging anyone to eat KFC. KFC is so much better overseas, like in India. It's so much better. But honestly, if you like fried chicken, go to a Korean fried chicken place. Like that's KFC. Where it's at. The other KFC. Yes. The quality. Yes. Yes. Anyway, okay. What's your question, Hoshin?
Okay, my question is, there's a lot of legislative framework
Ooh,
that,
it's a heady one.
You know, complement the Canadian Human Rights Act and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
Okay.
So in this legislative framework, there's a lot of acts, obviously, in this collective of legislative framework. Can you name one of the acts?
Oh, yes. The Multiculturalism Act. Did I get it?
I'll give that to you. Ding, 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 ding. It's the Canadian Multiculturalism Act.
Oh,
yes,
the
you got
Canadian.
It.
Oh, okay.
Well, you got it still.
Okay, well, thank you. I didn't put Canadian. Well, anyway, that's fine.
There's a lot of acts. I can give you the full list. The list is the Employment Equality Act, the Accessible Canadian Act, it's Accessible Canada Act, the Canadian Multiculturalism Act, the Indian Act, Public Service Employment Act, Federal Public Service Labor Relationships Act, and the last one is the Official Languages Act.
Okay. Well, wow, that's what, 10? 8? 10?
No, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 acts.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, they need one more act. The Hoshin and Andrea Act.
The FA Act.
The FA Act. Yes, I love it. I love it. Oh, so good. So good. Canada, you are so happy we're here. You're welcome. That's right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. That's our episode. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok. And if you'd like to more details, resources about the show, and all of the references that we made, you can find everything in our website, www.canadiansalad.ca. Let us know what you think of the show and join us every Tuesday and Friday for our Dishes Out episodes.
Yes, and our Friday Dishes Out is getting a lot of heat lately.
It is. Love. We do love. Yeah. We do love. You need to cook good food. You need some heat.
Exactly.
So, although I've never cooked a salad. Have you cooked a salad?
I mean,
a stir fry.
A stir fry is stir fry.
It's a cooked salad.
I feel like I've talked about this before.
Hoshin, it is the Asian Canadian salad. I think that's what we
stir fry.
Yeah, stir fry. Exactly. All right, everyone. Thank you and have a great week. We'll talk to you soon.
See you next week.
Okay, bye. Bye.
Canadian Salad is written and produced in British Columbia, Canada by Hoshin Ho and Andrea McCoy.
Theme music is by Naver Avedyan from Pixabay.
This has been a good Janklin production.